So, my dear leader, I've received a lot of feedback lately that says I am too busy. So, over this past week, I had people constantly say the words busy to me. And I'm like, what is going on? And so the first person who said they were busy actually is an entrepreneur whose desire is to skyrocket his business. And he's like, Nancy, I can't attend our coaching call because I am too busy. Now, our coaching call gets into the strategies of how to free him up so he can focus on the big priorities. But he then at least took my coaching to do one of these activities that I'm going to share with you. I had another potential client who's like, Nancy, our leaders can only take about 4 hours of training because they are too busy, even though their problem is around human motivation and learning human motivation, being really great at it, getting yourself going and getting your team of people going requires more than 4 hours of training. We got to change how you are showing up. And so if you are a leader in a company showing up busy, then you're not able to actually coach and mentor the people around you who can help you become unbusy. And then the final person that I chatted with last week actually is a researcher, and they research business success, what is going on in businesses. And one of the things they said to me, Nancy, is we are struggling to get responses from industry, from companies, because people are telling me they're too busy. So if you are locked in too busy, then I'm going to share with you in this activity 3 strategies to help you become aware of your busyness and start to move you out of busy into successful, into achieving the results that you want so that you can have more time, you can have more freedom. And in my concept, I call this focus to freedom. So let's dive into these 3 concepts. And the first one is you need to become aware of where you are spending your time and money. The second area is we're going to talk about alignment. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about is how to actually put a plan together. So let's dive into step number 1. So step number 1 is really around awareness of where you are. And so oftentimes we run our businesses based on checklists and to-do lists and our calendar, right? Which fills up with potentially other people's wants and desires, other people's meetings that they want you to attend. And so we get busy. And we get comfortable, right, in being that, because it can feel good to be busy. It feels like I'm doing something, I'm making progress, I am achieving really good results. However, when you look at your big goals, I'm curious how much of that busyness is actually moving that needle forward, is really making a huge difference in the success that you're having. So this first activity is actually to become aware, is start to recognize where are you spending time? What are you valuing? And what are you making more of a priority than the work of your big goals? So I'm hoping we can see this. But today I started to do this for you as an example. And essentially at the top of this, we talk about, I put the time, just a sheet of paper, and you're going to say, okay, what did I do? And mark down every minute, every interaction that you had. So in here, I'm going to try and bring this a little closer. You'll see I got up, I fed the dogs, I made coffee, and then I'm actually studying the book 10x is easier than 2x. And when I say study, I actually mean study, not just read it, but take notes and think about how am I going to apply it. And so you're going to hear a little bit of the philosophies in here. But then my dog interrupted me and wanted to play fetch, so I had to throw the ball from him. And trust me, he doesn't stop barking. Then I went back to it, right? So 6:30, I was reading and listening to the book. 6:38, I was interrupted by the dog. 6:41, I was back to 10x. 6:46, I was being interrupted again. 6:48, I was back to 10x. 6:55, the two dogs were now misbehaving, right? 6:56, I was back to 10x. 7:16, I got up and made myself a coffee. So you can see, right, I'm getting really detailed. And you may think, Nancy, why is that so important to get detailed? Well, as I go through this, right, I'm starting to become aware of what are the key things that I'm actually doing and what are the things that are interrupting my day. So for me, I have an importance around spending 90 minutes first thing in the morning, learning something, upgrading my knowledge in a way that I can share it with you, in a way that I can integrate it into the courses and content so that I can be better for my team. But what you see, right, is my dog is interrupting me. My dogs are interrupting me. My dogs are interrupting me. And so repeatedly, I'm getting this interruption. What this is making me aware of is like, okay, Nancy, what do you need to do about the dogs? So maybe it's I need to go take them for a really good walk first thing in the morning, exercise them, burn that energy out so that when I sit down to do my reading and learning, I actually can focus. Maybe it's I just need to train them better, which is probably true, so that they can be quiet when I need them to be quiet, and then I have playtime with them when I get to coordinate it and schedule it, right? So being aware, actually tracking every tiny little interruption starts to make you aware of where am I setting my priorities? Because my priority was learning, but obviously my priority became responding to the dogs. And so becoming aware helps us start to recognize a few things. It helps us to recognize our values. What is it that I value in the work, in what I'm doing? What is it and what is keeping me busy? So I encourage you to do this for at least 3 solid days of going down your list. And you don't need anything fancy, like a piece of paper and a clipboard, and just take it everywhere with you and write all of the notes about what is it that you're doing? What are you making a priority in the day? So when we first start to see it, right, we can start to be like, oh, okay, that is like incredible. That is where I'm spending my time. And now you can start to make decisions. So for me, right, I can start to make decisions around what is it that I need to do with my dogs to help with their behavior so that when I sit and train and learn, I can actually get into something known as flow. And we'll discuss that in a future. Okay, so the first one was awareness, right? Start to track every moment of the day. And it may seem silly, but trust me, lots of awareness will come forward. The next thing that you need to do is really spend time focused on your goals, getting really aligned and clear with those goals. So for me, I have a series of goals in relation to, one is my health. One goal is in relation to amplifying my business and making a bigger impact by working with leaders so that they can get unstuck and build an amazing team to grow their business. And so I have this big goal to work with 100 companies. And so working with those 100 companies, right, means that I need to do certain activities on my list. Here's the deal. When we set small goals and small little activities, so for example, if I said, Nancy, I want to lose 10 pounds. It's a small goal. It's not really massively inspiring. But instead, if I want to create a goal where I weigh 165 pounds, which is actually my ideal weight, having scans and everything done, right? And I want beautiful muscular arms and look incredible in a ballroom dance, right? I can visualize that. I can see it. And it's bigger than anything that I've ever done. And so it requires me to put a lot of thought and a lot of plan around that. If I want to work with 100 companies, ideally like you, right, and leaders and help them create incredible teams, then I need to visualize that and make that goal really big, as opposed to saying, you know what, I just want to work like 10 entrepreneurs. And so I want you to think of big, massive goals. And so Stephen Covey called these your BHAG, right? Your big, hairy, audacious goals, right there, like big and massive. Or if you look at the work of Stephen Kotler and Flow, he calls them high, hard goals, right? These are bigger than yourself. And when you think of these goals, right, think of things like that 10x version. So as I'm reading the work of Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, they talk about this concept of 10xing and getting into that mindset. Here's what happens when you start to think of big goals, like really big goals, as opposed to like little goals or little tiny steps. Then you have to start to be a different person, and you have to start to realize that the stuff on your list that is getting in the way of you achieving that goal, of being that person that you want to be. And so when you start to do that, when you start to think about the goal, you can now start to create decisions, and you can make decisions on a daily basis to be like, what are the things that I'm going to continue to do? And what are the things that I'm going to stop doing? And so the next thing I'm going to talk about is your stop doing list. But I want you to think about, what are those goals? And if you're not achieving those big goals, if you're as a company, if you're leading people, you need to step back and think about, what is it that I'm doing? What are the habits that I have created that hold me back from not achieving those goals? And those habits will actually show up on this list, because this list of what occurs in your day becomes your habits. And so I want you to think about, what are those habits, and are my goals, are the actions and the little activities I'm doing on a daily basis aligned with those goals? Or are those habits that I'm working on interfering with me achieving the results, the goals that I want? So as you think of your big goals, go back to your list and start to be really critical about it. And then the third step is what we call the stop doing list. And this is where you literally go through and be like, okay, I'm going to stop doing these things that fill my day. I'm going to stop doing these activities. And so there is great research. There's a good book called Good to Great. I'm going to pull it up here. If you've not read this book and you're a leader, I highly recommend it. It goes through a series of businesses and talks about what over an extended period of time caused them to exceed over their competitors. And so one of the big theories in here is this concept of a stop doing list. And so what it really is what are the activities on your sheet that you're doing on a daily basis that are holding you back from stepping up as that leader, holding you back from your team being able to exceed and excel, holding your organization back? I want you to really think about, what are the things that you're doing that do not align with those goals? And it comes from looking at that list, right? Like that time list, that figuring out what it is that you are doing helps you become aware of what you need to stop doing. And so as a leader, I encourage you to do this with yourself. I encourage you to have all of your employees do this. And I invite you to sit around a table and look through, what are the things that you're doing, right? Maybe you're answering text messages on your phone. Maybe you're doing a lot of email responding and you're allowing those emails to interrupt you. What you saw earlier, right, was I was responding every time the dogs interrupted me. I actually wrote that down. Now, I'm lucky as a woman in the fact that my interruptions don't come from children, but they sometimes come from my spouse. However, women who are lucky enough to have a family, have children, we've now moved to a thing where our children are so attached to us. And even as parents, right, our children are so attached to us. So when we think about that stop doing, it's not just like, what do I need to stop doing, but what do I need to help others? What do I need to communicate? What do I need to set up so that others can also stop doing that with me, and I can help them become more successful? And so I encourage you, if you are a parent and you have children who you give freedom to text you, or if your spouse has freedom to text you and expects an answer any minute, that is actually interfering with you being great. Now, in a future one, I'll talk about the power of communication to people so that your spouse or your children can understand that when you're doing this activity, that while you're doing it, that's where your focus is, but when you are with them, you're going to give them the same focus. However, in this list of 3, I really want you to focus on, what are the things that I can now stop doing? How can I pull things out of my activities? How can I pull things? And so I encourage you, go back to that list and go, what are the 80% of things that I don't need to be doing? And what are the 20% of things that I do need to be doing, that I really should be focusing on? And I'm going to take 100% responsibility. So my mentor, my coach, Jack Canfield, talks about this 100% responsibility. Now, I encourage you, because next week when I go live on the podcast, I'm going to take you on the next step of the journey. And we're going to really talk about the power of delegation, deleting, and deciding that those are the key activities that you should do. And then as you elevate your leadership status, then we can move those forward. But today, I want you to do these 3 things, and I want you to do it for the next 3 days. And if you have a team, I want you to do it with the team. So step number 1, I want you to track every minute of the day of what you are doing. It seems like a lot of work, but it actually isn't that much. And it will give you that awareness. Step number 2 is I want you to get really clear on what those big, hard goals are, right? Or those big, hairy, audacious goals. What are those big things that you want to achieve in life so that you can vision that and move that forward? And then I want you to take those big goals and I want you to look at the activities that you're doing on a daily basis. I want you to look at the effectiveness of what you're doing. And I'm curious, do you have blocks of time in your day that each of those blocks of time makes a big difference in moving your goal significantly forward? Like it makes an 80% difference towards your goal success. And the final thing is that I want you to stop doing, create a really clear stop doing list and say, my value is worth more than these activities, and I'm going to strike them off the activities list and stop doing them. When you can get really good at those things, when you get really clear about what it is, you're going to notice more freedom in your life because you're focused on what your number 1 priorities are. And I want you to build more freedom so that you can achieve the results that you as a leader, that you as a business owner are here to do and create in the world. My name is Nancy Michieli, and I am a leadership, communication, and collaboration coach here to help you succeed. I would love to do a consultation with you where we go through your stop doing list, those 3 priorities. So if you want help, book a blueprint strategy session. It's 100% free. I'm going to help you get really clear on this topic so that you can move forward in your business. Cheers and have a great week.